All right, so let's talk about the living world. Biology, at its core, is the science of life forms and living processes. It's basically the study of everything that's alive and how it works. Now, when we look around us, what do we see? The living world has this incredible, amazing diversity. I mean, we're talking about millions of different types of organisms, each one unique in its own way. Scientists have identified and described somewhere between 1.7 to 1.8 million different species so far. And that's just what we know about. There are probably millions more we haven't even discovered yet. This whole concept, the number and types of organisms on Earth, we call this biodiversity. It's one of the fundamental ideas we'll be exploring throughout this chapter. Before we dive deeper, I want to introduce you to someone really important in the field of taxonomy and evolutionary biology. Ernst Mayr. This guy was born on July 5th, 1904 in Kempten, Germany, and he lived to be 100 years old, passing away in 2004. He was literally called the Darwin of the 20th century, and he's considered one of the 100 greatest scientists of all time. That's how influential this man was. Mayr joined Harvard's Faculty of Arts and Sciences in 1953 and retired in 1975 with the title Alexander Agassiz Professor of Zoology Emeritus. But honestly, he never really stopped working. Throughout his nearly 80-year career, yes, 80 years, his research spanned ornithology, taxonomy, zoogeography, evolution, systematics, and the history and philosophy of biology. The guy covered everything. Here's what's really important. He almost single-handedly made the origin of species diversity the central question of evolutionary biology that it is today. Before Mayr, people weren't really asking why are there so many different species in a systematic way. He also pioneered the currently accepted definition of a biological species, the biological species concept. We'll get into what that means later in this session. And the recognition. Mayr was awarded what they call the Triple Crown of Biology, the Balzan Prize in 1983, the International Prize for Biology in 1994, and the Crawford Prize in 1999. These are the biggest honors you can get in biology. Okay, so now let's think about this problem that we have millions of plants and animals in the world, right? And in our own areas, we know them by their local names. But here's the issue. These local names vary from place to place, even within the same country. Imagine the confusion that would create if we didn't have a standard way to talk about organisms. If I'm in one part of India calling something one name, and you're in another part calling it something completely different, how would scientists around the world communicate? That's why there's a need to standardize the naming of living organisms, so that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. This whole process, we call it nomenclature. Now, nomenclature is only possible when the organism is described correctly and we know exactly what organism the name is attached to. That process of describing it correctly, that's identification. See how these concepts connect? And then we have classification, the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. Like, we easily recognize groups such as plants, or animals, or dogs, or cats. So scientists have established procedures to assign scientific names to organisms. For plants, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria provided in the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, or ICBN for short. And for animals, taxonomists have evolved the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, ICZN. These codes ensure that naming is consistent worldwide. Here's the key thing. Each scientific name has two components. The first is called the generic name. That's the genus. The second is called the specific epithet that identifies the particular species. This system of providing a name with two components is called binomial nomenclature. Bi means two, nomial refers to names. Two-part naming system. This naming system was given by Carolus Linnaeus, and it's being practiced by biologists all over the world. Linnaeus is often called the father of taxonomy because of this contribution. Let's take a concrete example to understand binomial nomenclature better. The scientific name of mango is written as Mangifera indica. Let me break that down for you. In this name, Mangifera represents the genus. It's the first word, And notice it starts with a capital letter. This tells us what group of closely related species the organism belongs to. Then we have indica. That's the specific epithet. It's the second word, and it starts with a small letter. This identifies the particular species within that genus. So together, Mangifera indica tells us exactly which organism we're talking about, this particular species of mango. Any biologist anywhere in the world would know exactly what plant we mean. All right, now let's go through the universal rules of nomenclature. Rule number 1. Biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. They're Latinized or derived from Latin, no matter where they originally came from. Rule number 2. The first word in a biological name represents the genus, while the second component denotes the specific epithet. This is the core structure of binomial nomenclature. Rule number 3. Both words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined, or when printed, they're in italics. This indicates their Latin origin. So you'd write Mangiferae with an underline, space, then Indica with its own underline. Rule number 4, and this is really important. The first word denoting the genus starts with a capital letter, while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. Always. No exceptions. So it's Mangifera indica, not Mangifera indica or Mangifera indica. Now here's something interesting. The name of the author who first described the species appears after the specific epithet at the end of the biological name, written in an abbreviated form. For example, you might see Mangifera indica Linn. That Linn dot at the end? That's the abbreviation for Linnaeus. It indicates that this species was first described by Carolus Linnaeus himself. Pretty cool, right? Let's connect all these ideas together now that we've talked about naming, but there's more to it. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. These categories, like dogs, mammals, wheat, plants, the scientific term for these is taxa. Singular is taxon, plural is taxa. These can be at very different levels. Plants is a taxon, wheat is also a taxon, but at different hierarchical levels. So based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This entire process of classification, that's taxonomy. It's the science of classification. Modern taxonomic studies are based on a lot of information: external and internal structure, structure of the cell, development processes, and ecological information of organisms. It's way more sophisticated than just looking at what something looks like on the outside. So to summarize, there are 4 basic processes in taxonomy: characterization, identification, classification, and nomenclature. All 4 work together to help us organize and understand the living world. Now, there's another term you need to know: systematics. Human beings have always been interested not just in knowing about different kinds of organisms, but also understanding the relationships among them. That broader study is called systematics. The word systematics is derived from the Latin word systema, which means systematic arrangement of organisms. It's about organizing living things in a meaningful way. In fact, Linnaeus himself used Systema Naturae, system of nature, as the title of his publication. That tells you how central this idea of systematic organization was to his work. The scope of systematics was later enlarged to include identification, nomenclature, and classification. So it's broader than just taxonomy. Here's the key difference. Systematics takes into account evolutionary relationships between organisms. It's not just about grouping similar things together. It's about understanding how they're related through evolution. That's what makes it more comprehensive than basic taxonomy. All right, now we're getting into the really interesting part. Classification is not a single-step process. It involves a hierarchy of steps, where each step represents a rank or category. Since each category is a part of the overall taxonomic arrangement, it's called a taxonomic category. And all categories together, they constitute the taxonomic hierarchy, basically a ladder of classification levels. Each category, referred to as a unit of classification, represents a rank and is commonly termed a taxon. Remember, we use taxa as the plural, so one taxon, many taxa. Taxonomic studies of all known organisms have led to the development of these common categories: kingdom, phylum, or division for plants, class, order, family, genus, and species. These are the standard ranks used worldwide. And here's something important. All organisms, including those in the plant and animal kingdoms, have species as the lowest category. Species is the fundamental unit, the base of the hierarchy. So let's start at the bottom of this hierarchy and work our way up. Species. Taxonomic studies consider a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities as a species. You should be able to distinguish one species from another closely related species based on distinct morphological differences in their form and structure. Let's look at some examples. Mangifera indica, that's mango. Solanum tuberosum, that's potato. Panthera leo, that's lion. In all three names, indica, tuberosum, and leo represent the specific epithets. In the first words, Mangifera, Solanum, and Panthera, these are genera. They represent another higher level of taxon or category. Each genus may have one or more species. For example, Panthera has another specific epithet called tigris, that's tiger. And Solanum includes species like nigrum and melongena, which is brinjal. Human beings? We belong to the species sapiens, which is grouped in the genus Homo. So our scientific name is Homo sapiens. That's us. Moving up one level now, a genus comprises a group of related species which have more characters in common compared to species of other genera. We can say that genera, that's the plural of genus, are aggregates of closely related species. They're bundles of similar species grouped together. Here's a plant example. Potato and brinjal are two completely different species. You can definitely tell them apart, but both belong to the genus Solanum. They share enough characteristics to be grouped in the same genus. For animals, think about lion, Panthera leo, leopard, P. pardus, and tiger, P. tigris. These three species have several common features, so they're all in the genus Panthera. Now, this genus Panthera differs from another genus called Felis, which includes cats. See how we're grouping things based on their similarities and differences? Next level up, family. The category family has a group of related genera, but with fewer similarities compared to the genus and species levels. For plants, families are characterized on the basis of both vegetative and reproductive features. So we look at leaves, stems, roots, and flowers, fruits, seeds. Among plants, three different genera, Solanum, Petunia, and Datura, are all placed in the family Solanaceae. Even though they're different genera, they share enough family characteristics to be grouped together. For animals, genus Panthera, which is lions, tigers, leopards, is put together with genus Felis, which has cats, in the family Felidae. They're all felines, all cat-like animals. Now, if you compare cats and dogs, you'll find some similarities. They're both carnivores, both mammals, but also clear differences. That's why they're separated into two different families, Felidae for cats and Canidae for dogs. Moving up to order now. Generally, order and other higher taxonomic categories are identified based on the aggregates of characters, collections of traits rather than individual specific features. Order, being a higher category, is the assemblage of families which exhibit a few similar characters. Notice, a few similar characters, not many. The similar characters are less in number compared to different genera included in a family. As we go higher in the hierarchy, we have fewer and fewer shared characteristics. For plants, families like Convolvulaceae and Solanaceae are included in the order Polemoniales, mainly based on the floral characters, the structure of their flowers. The animal order Carnivora includes families like Felidae and Canidae. These are the meat eaters, the carnivorous mammals. Next up, class. This category includes related orders. So we're grouping multiple orders together based on broader similarities. For example, order Primata, which includes monkeys, gorillas, and gibbons, is placed in class Mammalia along with order Carnivora, which includes animals like tigers, cats, and dogs. And class Mammalia doesn't just have these two orders. It has many other orders as well. All the mammals, all animals that nurse their young with milk, have hair, are warm-blooded. They're all in class Mammalia. All right, getting near the top now. For animals, classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, along with mammals, constitute the next higher category called phylum. All these animal groups, based on common features like the presence of a notochord and a dorsal hollow neural system, are included in phylum Chordata. That notochord is basically what gives us our backbone structure. Now, for plants, we use a slightly different term. Instead of phylum, classes with a few similar characters are assigned to a higher category called division. It's basically the plant equivalent of phylum. And finally, we reach the top of the hierarchy, kingdom. This is the highest, most inclusive category in the classification system. All animals belonging to various phyla are assigned to the highest category, called kingdom Animalia. Every animal on Earth, from sponges to humans, belongs to this kingdom. The kingdom Plantae, on the other hand, is distinct and comprises all plants from various divisions. From tiny mosses to giant redwood trees, they're all in kingdom Plantae. Now, let's understand how this hierarchy actually works. This is really important. As we go higher from species to kingdom, the number of common characteristics goes on decreasing. Think about it this way. Lower the taxa, more of the characteristics that the members within the taxon share. At the species level, organisms are very similar. At the kingdom level, they might just share a few fundamental traits. And here's the challenge. Higher the category, greater is the difficulty of determining the relationship to other taxa at the same level. That's why classification becomes more complex as you move up the hierarchy. So to visualize this, the complete hierarchy in ascending order is species, then genus, then family, then order, then class, then phylum or division, and finally kingdom at the top. Let me give you some complete classification examples so you can see how this works in practice, starting with humans, man. The biological name is Homo sapiens. Genus, Homo. Family, Hominidae. Order, Primata. Class, Mammalia. Phylum, Chordata. The common housefly, Musca domestica. Genus, Musca. Family, Muscidae. Order, Diptera, which means two wings. Class, Insecta. Phylum, Arthropoda, the joint-legged animals. Now for a plant, mango. Mangifera indica. Genus, Mangifera. Family, Anacardiaceae. Order, Sapindales. Class, Dicotyledonnae, the dicots. Division, Angiospermae, the flowering plants. And finally, wheat, Triticum aestivum. Genus, Triticum. Family, Poaceae, the grass family. Order, Poles. Class, Monocotyledonnae, the monocots. Division, Angiospermae, also a flowering plant. Notice something interesting here? Mango and wheat both belong to the same division, Angiospermae, but they differ at the class level. One's a dicot, one's a monocot. That shows you how the hierarchy helps us understand relationships. All right, let's bring this all together. The four basic processes we discussed are characterization, identification, classification, and nomenclature. These are the foundations of taxonomy. We learned about binomial nomenclature, the two-part naming system with genus and species, given to us by Carolus Linnaeus. This system is used worldwide and ensures every organism has one unique scientific name. The taxonomic hierarchy goes from species at the bottom through genus, family, order, class, phylum, or division, up to kingdom at the top. Each level groups organisms based on shared characteristics. Remember this key principle. The lower you go in the hierarchy, the more characteristics organisms share. The higher you go, the fewer characteristics they have in common. And finally, systematics is broader than taxonomy because it takes into account evolutionary relationships between organisms, not just their similarities and differences. All of this knowledge, the naming rules, the classification system, the hierarchical organization, it helps us make sense of Earth's incredible biodiversity. Those 1.7 to 1.8 million known species, and probably millions more we haven't discovered yet. Taxonomy gives us the tools to organize, study, and understand all that diversity. And that's pretty amazing when you think about it. And thank you for watching. Download Iyal.App now.
Meet Iyal, your AI study companion. Transform PDFs into smart study guides, practice tests, and flashcards for UPSC, NEET, banking, and any competitive exam.
Master your exam preparation with Iyal.